And welcome to another Mark Bishop show. You know, using chimpanzees didn't work, using monkeys doesn't work, yet taxpayers are still paying through the nose. We are for monkeys to be imported and bred into the US, holding back useful research and posing a health threat. This is according to Dr. Lisa Jones-Engel, PETA's senior science advisor on primate experimentation. Welcome, Lisa.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Well, folks, listeners, I bet you didn't know this. Since the start of the pandemic, nearly 70,000 monkeys have been imported into the US. Now, these monkeys arrived from more than 300 international shipments and were then trucked to secretive quarantine facilities. And PETA's senior science advisor on primate experimentation, we've asked to be available to talk to us to discuss the scientific and public health consequences when monkeys are imported and bred by the National Primate Research Centres, and how what is important is for you listeners to get involved, because it's pretty horrible. So Dr. Jones-Engel, look, you've worked with monkeys in the wild for decades, monkeys imported from Asia, Africa, South America. How different are their lives in the lab?
You know, the experimenting on monkeys has been disastrous, and it needs to stop. Because there have been more than 1 million monkeys that have actually been ripped from the forests of Asia and Africa and South America. They've experienced unspeakable horrors. They've been boxed up, shipped around the world, tortured, killed in the labs. Billions of taxpayer dollars have been wasted. And the horrors for the animals, the extraordinary waste of taxpayer dollars, has led to the result continues to be this utter failure to produce successful vaccines and meaningful treatments. And this is the reality of the monkey experimentation world. It's a world that I've spent many, many years in. And the life of a monkey in the lab compared to the monkey in the wild, there could not be two more different things than you could imagine.
Sounds absolutely horrific. What are the National Primate Research Centers, in a nutshell?
There are 7 of them now. There used to be 8. They are located in Wisconsin and Washington State, California, Oregon, Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia. These are centers that were established 60 years ago. They're funded almost entirely by the National Institutes of Health, so by taxpayer dollars. There used to be 8. A few years ago, Harvard University, which housed one of these NPRCs, they looked at the facts. They looked at the money facts, the monkey facts, the fact that despite these phenomenally expensive and torturous experiments on monkeys, they hadn't delivered the promised HIV vaccines or the Alzheimer's treatment or the treatment for cardiovascular disease or cancer or diabetes. And Harvard shut down their National Primate Research Center because they were no longer going to invest in this bad science. Well, we have 7 holdouts who, despite all the evidence sitting in front of them, proving time and time again that if you have diseased, distressed monkeys sitting in a cage, you're not going to get any closer to making meaningful improvements in human health. These 7 NPRCs continue to hold 26,000 monkeys in our backyards, basically.
Yeah. Well, you know, the cry out is, oh, yes, but look, you know, we're trying to find you know, it's all about trying to save humans. It's all about trying to, but as you say, nothing comes of it. Tens of thousands of monkeys being imported into the US every year. I mean, what comes to mind for me is about quarantine. I mean, it's designed to protect public health by detecting monkeys arriving with viral hemorrhagic fevers, tuberculosis, pathogens that can cause deadly diarrheal diseases, fatal diseases transmitted by mosquitoes, herpes B, zoonotic mascoid virus. It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It does. And actually, we got a little glimpse of why we have to have these quarantines and of the potential infectious threat of these monkeys a few weeks ago. You know, 100 macaques came in on a shipment to JFK. The CDC met them there, checked the box. They were loaded onto a truck. They were going through Pennsylvania. There was a collision. The crate spilled out onto the highway. 3 monkeys got loose. CDC was alerted. They sent a team. This was the nightmare scenario. And the CDC knew that, and they did their risk assessment, and they ordered that those monkeys be shot on site. And that's because they know that the potential for an outbreak scenario, for these monkeys to transmit any of that long list of infectious agents to humans exists. And they can't run that risk. But you know what? You mentioned the 31-day quarantine, that these animals are, every monkey that comes into this country is required to go to a 31-day quarantine. But the thing is, even though we're screening for TB and malaria and viral hemorrhagic fevers and diarrheal diseases, they're often missed. They go undetected.
Mm-hmm.
So those monkeys that make it out alive of quarantine hop back on a truck. They tootle across the country to a national primate research center or to another facility somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, a few months, they break with TB or with a diarrheal disease, further undermining their utility as a biomedical model, but more to the point, increasing the public health risk that they present.
Dr. Lisa Jones-Engel, I just don't get it. We've had 2.5 years of absolute hell through the country. COVID, enough to see it's coming out of bats or coming out of other animals. I mean, the whole thing. Who has oversight on the importation and movement of these monkeys throughout the U.S.?
It is an incredibly disjointed process. So CDC is in charge of permitting the monkeys to come into the country. They're supposed to make sure that they go through that CDC-approved quarantine, and then the CDC kind of washes their hands of the monkeys. The USDA then technically picks them up, once they're in a facility or even as they're moving between facilities. But this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There is so much money. These monkeys are so insanely valuable. Or they're not valuable because they're not valuable scientifically. They're insanely expensive. That it takes an awful lot to get action, to get real meaningful oversight on these animals. And without that, let me just give you this. So right now, I mentioned there were 26,000 monkeys in the NPRCs.
Mm-hmm.
About probably 10,000 of these animals, maybe 15,000, are housed outdoors in corrals or in corn cribs in places like Texas, Louisiana, and whatnot. These monkeys are actually, it's an open-air buffet for insects to come and feed on these monkeys, transmit parasites like the ones that cause Chagas disease.
Right.
The bugs feed on the monkeys. The bugs then go back out, and the bugs start biting people, and they bite dogs, and they transmit the parasite that was the monkeys are serving as a reservoir for, then spills over and moves over into humans and into our dogs. No one's got their eye on that.
I mean, that is just absolutely amazing, isn't it? I mean, how thick are they? Well, I think you touched on it earlier. It's about the money. Always about the money, isn't it? And we, the suckers, the poor human beings, the public, know nothing about what's going on. And then, next minute there's another virus outbreak, and which could have been prevented. Mm-hmm. So they need to be shown up. The oversight on the importation of this whole thing needs to be shown right up, doesn't it? So in all honesty, these laboratories, they're a disease threat to public health in the United States of America. There's no doubt about it.
That's exactly. They represent a disease threat. The animals, the way that they maintain the animals, you take a monkey and you put it in a cage that's the size of your kitchen cabinet, and you keep it underground, and that monkey is by itself. It has no companionship. It has no control. It has no challenge. The monkey just starts breaking down. Its mental state starts breaking down. Its immune state starts breaking down. It starts, the immune system cannot keep normal infectious agents in check. And so they're shedding things in their urine, their feces, and their saliva. This doesn't happen with monkeys in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe in keeping one as a pet
alone.
either. Keeping monkeys as a pet, I don't think is a good idea either. Well, look, it's no wonder PETA has been urging the NIH to move away from experiments on animals. Its campaigns have shut down numerous NIH-funded experiments, including shocking psychological experiments on baby monkeys taken from their mothers shortly after birth. Tell us a little bit about that. You know what goes on there. Let's shock a few listeners into reality, shall we?
All right. So you want some shocks? A monkey, the hundreds of thousands of monkeys that come into these actually, every monkey that comes into this country, they never leave alive. They never go back to. There's no sanctuary. There's no rehabilitation into the forest of Asia. You're a monkey. You come into this country. You die. They end up their lives. At the end of their lives, they're killed. Their bits and pieces are assigned to a tissue distribution program. Then they're bagged up in a red biohazard bag, and they're incinerated. And you know what? Actually, that's probably a kindness at that point, because their life in that cage, where that infant is ripped from them, or where they have no one else. Monkeys are incredibly social beings. They're primates, just like us. They need to have friends. They need to have touch. They need to have comfort. Every bit of that is taken away from them in the laboratory. It is an existence that is so miserable, and it is written on their bodies. You look at them in the cage, you see the hair plucked out, you see the diarrhea and beneath them, you see them spinning in the cage. Anyone with eyes knows that animal is broken, and there is nothing that you're going to learn from that animal that's going to translate to an improvement in human health.
That's sad. There's two angles, two sides to it. There's the cruelty to animals, period, bringing them in and they're going to die and what you do with them. And then there's the very important disease-associated side of it all. And you're right. Mosquitoes, bugs, out they go. I mean, it just automatically helps them spread. And that's a big concern. Listen, if people go to the site, www.PETA.org, is the latest up to date on this? Doctor, is all this reading we've shared about today, is it on there now?
Absolutely. So go to PETA.org/NPRC, National Primate Research Center. Take a look at the information that we put out there. We have been FOIAing documents. We've been going through pathology reports, email trails. You can see some videos. And then go to the Activist Center. With a couple of clicks, you can send an email to the National Institutes of Health. And you can tell them, hey, my taxpayer dollars need to go towards research, non-animal research, the research that's going to actually improve human health. I don't want my money going towards bad monkey science. I'm done. Put my money where it belongs. Put my money where it's going to help me and help my friends.
Well, my special guest today, folks, has been Dr. Lisa Jones-Engel. She's a senior science advisor on primate experimentation for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. She's a Fulbright scholar and studied the human-primate interface in Africa, Asia, and the primate biomedical facilities for the U.S. for nearly 40 years. I think she knows what she's talking about. Not only that, she's published 95 peer-reviewed articles spanning the fields of primatology and virology, epidemiology, microbiology, and conservation. I mean, she's seen it all, and she knows what she's talking about. It's not a cry for, kind-hearted people. This is serious stuff. Doc, I wish you well, and thank you so much for bringing it to light for us. And, I want people to go to the site, PETA.org, www.PETA.org, and have a good look for yourself. Thank you, Doctor. It was nice speaking with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for helping me get the job done.